In accordance with section 15.3 bracket 3.1 of the Building Code Act, the Property Standards Appeal Committee has all the powers and functions of the officer who made the order, and the committee may do any of the following things if, in the committee's opinion, doing so would maintain the general intent of purpose of the bylaw and of the official plan or policy statement. 1, confirm, modify, or rescind the order to demolish or repair. 2, extend the time for complying with the order. The agenda and attached reports from the bylaw officer, which includes the order, was published in accordance with the procedural bylaw of the Township of Muskoka Lakes. Secretary for this meeting is Cheryl Hollows. Persons wishing to receive a copy of the decision of the committee should submit a written request to the secretary at chollows@muskokalakes.ca. Today's meeting will be conducted as follows. 1, chair to call the meeting to order at 1 p.m., verbally confirm members present and confirm quorum. We have members of the committee, Joseph Quinn, Barb Bridgman, and Ruth Ann Brown, and myself, Sean Stokes. And I'll read the public notice. Today's meeting is being held electronically. The committee adopted procedural rules on February 1st, 2022 to allow for electronic meetings. Today's meeting is being live streamed on the Township of Muskoka Lakes YouTube channel. By participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded and posted online. 2, the chair will read a portion of the orders PS-2023-02/PS/2023/03/PS-2023-05, which have been included in the bylaw officer's report attached to the agenda. 3, the township's investigating officer will provide an overview of the investigation and circumstances leading to the issuance of the order. 4, the appellants will set out their appeal. 5, the committee will debate the matter and ask questions, if desired, from the bylaw officer, the appellants, or any other staff present, then make a decision within their scope of authority. Please note that all discussions must happen through the chair. Do any committee members have a pecuniary interest in the applications being heard this afternoon? No. None noted. Oh.
The host has turned off my video. I believe I need to be on. I'm sorry.
Okay, so order PS-2023-02. This matter is regarding the order PS-2023-02 dated May 16th, 2023, regarding the deficiencies in the main, in 1004 West Black Lake Road as follows. Main building, 1, repair and apply a new coat of protective material, for example, paint, to all exterior walls. 2, repair the roof so it is returned to a structurally sound condition and free of any loose objects or shingles, etc. All vegetation and debris on top of the roof shall also be removed. Before repair commences on the roof, a building permit shall be obtained. Compliance with this order is required on or before July 31st, 2023. Exterior yard. 1, removal of all discarded items and materials from the property and ensure that the property not return to the current state of cleanliness or worse. 2, removal of all inoperable motor vehicles, boats, and machinery from the property, or return them to a legal running order, and if necessary, valid license plates shall be attached to all relevant motor vehicles. Compliance with this order is required on or before June 5th, 2023. Mr. Kennedy, can you please provide an overview of the circumstances leading to the issuance of the order?
Good afternoon, committee. Hopefully everybody can hear me. This is the first of 3 property standards order appeals. This first one will be, as discussed already, from 1004 West Black Lake Road. Legal owner is Mr. Roy Garnett Bertram. So a little bit of background regarding this, and as you will note, these three properties that will be discussed today are very, very similar in nature. So there may be some overlap that you will hear throughout the appeals. In all three cases, in this one, there has been some extensive background and extensive enforcement history at 1004 West Black Lake Road. This goes back to the early 2000s, and this all extends from the cleanliness of the exterior yard, and as well as the building that's in question, that's in the order. The previous instance regarding this property resulted in a charge which was taken to the provincial court office, and as a result of that charge, a conviction was registered, and a probation order was issued to the property owner, Mr. Roy Garnett Bertram, on January 11th, 2023, which stated that the probation order was for 2 years from the time that it was issued on January 11th, 2023, that he is not able to commit the same or any similar offense. The probation order, I believe, is listed as Appendix 5. Just give me 1 second. Nothing's working for me. Nope, not Appendix 5. Yeah. So if we could pull up Appendix 4 for this, please. So as seen on the screen at this point, I will ask that this be marked as Exhibit 1 for evidence purposes for this appeal hearing. This is the probation order that was issued on January 11th, 2023, which specifies that it is in effect for a period of 2 years from the time of issuance. And the defendant at the bottom of page 1, I'll just read it out, that number 1, the defendant shall not commit the same offense or any other related or similar offense or any offense under a statute of Canada or Ontario or any other province of Canada that is punishable by imprisonment. Number 2, the defendant shall appear before the court as and when required. And number 3, the defendant shall notify the court of any change in the defendant's address.
If I may interject, I'm sorry, I'm not exactly sure how this works. Do I wait to speak if there's an error with respect to, there's just a substantial error with respect to the conviction? There was never a conviction registered on 1004 in January the 11th, 2023. Do I wait to bring that up, members of the chair?
Yes, you should wait. We'll address them at the appropriate time.
Thank you.
So continuing through the chair, this investigation started after multiple complaints were received by the bylaw division, and a site visit was conducted on May 5th, 2023. As a result of the site visit, it was confirmed that there were items present on the property in the exterior yard that were in contravention of the In Effect Township Property Standards Bylaw 1999-34. It was also noted that there was one building on the property that was in bad condition. The roof was covered in pine and moss, and there were actually branches that had penetrated the roof membrane and were sticking out of top of the roof. The building appeared to be sagging in the middle, which indicated to me that there could be a possible structural issue. And there were multiple vehicles and boats on the property that did appear to be in an inoperable condition, and appeared that they had not moved in a number of years. Could we pull up Appendix 1, please? Yeah, actually, let's go to the pictures first. Yeah, go to appendix 2, please. So on the screen that we see now, these are photos that were taken by myself on May 5th, 2023 at 10:50 a.m. At the property of 1004 West Black Lake Road. If we just scroll through the photos, this will depict what was seen as described already in regards to the dilapidated building. And on the top picture on the screen at this point, you can clearly see that the roof is actually split at the peak, which would indicate to me that there are some structural issues surrounding the roof and the overall building. As we scroll through the pictures, you'll notice that there are multiple vehicles, trailers of the sort that are on the property that appear to be in an operable condition. They did not have any license plates on them. While it was early in the year, there was little vegetation around the vehicles. But I can confirm that based on previous inspections on previous instances at this property, many of these vehicles have not moved in the time frame that I've been here, which is about 2.5 years at this point. Now, if we can go to appendix 1, please. So as a result of the site inspection that was done on May 5th, 2023, an order was issued dated May 16th, 2023, which has already been described by Chair Stokes with the items listed. If we could go to page 3 and 4, please, of the order. So these have already been listed by Chair Stokes with respect to the main building, which is green in color. The two items were listed with a compliance date of July 31st, 2023. Through investigation after the fact, it was found that there is an 11-year-old building permit that is open on the property still with respect to this building. Mr. Bertram has come into the office and spoken to our chief building official, Nick Snyder, and agreement has been made through the building department that he is able to utilize that building permit in order to fix the building. So the building permit portion of this order has been complied with. If we go to the exterior yard, just below, for the exterior yards, the deadline was June 5th, 2023, which is the minimum amount of time that we have to give, which is 19 days from the issuance of the order before any action can be taken by a municipality, and that is through the Ontario Building Code. It is 14 days at the time of the order being issued, plus another 5 days to account for the registered mail in which this order was served via registered mail, as well as posted to the property. Official service of this order is through the registered mail version. If we can go to appendix 5, I believe. So in this appendix, you will see the bottom picture is an aerial photograph from 2018 of the property of 1004 West Black Lake Road. And above it, you will see the zoning overlay, which is a zoning of 2023, which shows that the front portion of the property is zoned R3, which is in yellow. And the back portion of the property is zoned Environmental Protection 1, which virtually does not allow for anything to happen on that piece of property within that zone, aside from being environmentally protected. I will note that the R3 zone does allow for a residential use, which at the time of the inspection, as well as previous inspections, there is no indication to me that this is being used as a residential yard. This is being used more or less for a junkyard or storage, if you will. And if we could go to Appendix 3, please. So these photographs were taken again at 1004 West Black Lake Road on June 27th, 2023. Roughly around, if I can read that right now, is 3:10 p.m. Now this inspection was done to show committee what progress has been made since the appeal was issued or submitted to our office. As you will see, the very first photograph, that gray cube van that you saw in the May 5th inspections is still present on the property. You will note in the corner of the second photo on the top page, there is a dump bin. So the owner has taken some steps to clean up the property by way of removing it through the dump bins. But you will see as we scroll through the photos that numerous items are still present on the property. That in the opinion of myself as the officer, they are in contravention of the property standards bylaw. And I will confirm that it did not appear that any work had been completed on the building as of that date. So to conclude this, staff would recommend to committee that the order be confirmed as written. As I stated before, this property has had an extensive history, which dates back over 20 years. And the reason for the short time frame, especially for the exterior yards, was for the fact that Mr. Bertram has been convicted on multiple occasions and been given orders in the past, which he has failed to comply with. And staff have spent extensive amount of time and energy in order to try and gain compliance. To this point, obviously, as we've seen, still has yet to be given. So I will leave it at that, and I will defer over to the appellant. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Does the applicant or agent have a presentation that he or she wishes to make?
Yes, I do. If I may do a brief sort of opening first, and then Mr. Bertram then is going to go through the photographs and just sort of give some information with respect to those. With respect to the conviction on January the 11th, 2023, the conviction, Mr. Bertram was previously before the courts from an order August 27th, 2021. That's when that order first started. I came into this to the scene then and was retained in September of 2021. Mr. Bertram then worked diligently from that date over to the January date and when that was finally resolved. When that was resolved before the Provincial Offences Court on January the 11th, 2023, there was no conviction with respect to 1004 West Black Lake Road. The charges on all of those charges that were before the court were withdrawn. There was no probation issued either with respect to that property. There was, and it's hard because there's kind of the two sort of go hand in hand. 1011 West Black Lake Road, which we'll get to next. That was the one that had a conviction for the failed to comply with an order, and that's where the probation order stemmed from. So as far as this property, there was no conviction with respect to it on January the 11th. Those charges were withdrawn. There was a prior cleanup order from the township from years prior that was dealt with. That's the only, but this is the second time that there has been any matter on this property for which would proceed if it proceeded further to Provincial Offences Court. This would only be the second time. So with respect to when this matter was in court, I think the biggest issue that Mr. Bertram's having and that I'm having since coming on board is what exactly needs to be done to bring the property into compliance. December 7th, 2021, before this matter, before the 1004 and the 1011 West Black Lake Road went to the Provincial Offences Court, I personally had a conversation and was advised by Mr. Kennedy that the property was at 98% done and satisfied and brought into compliance. There was on 1004 one cube van that is still there that needs to be removed. That we'll hear from Mr. Bertram with respect to that. And there was 2 trucks on, well, we're not dealing with the other property. So with respect to 1004, other than that, that property was to be considered in compliance. We resolved it January the 11th, 2023, when the charges were withdrawn against 1004 West Black Lake Road. And we resolved it and withdrew them because the property was in compliance at that time. Mr. Kennedy's given his evidence today to say that there's vehicles on that property that haven't moved in 2.5 years. We'll hear from Mr. Bertram. There's no dispute on that. But when the first set of charges were before the Provincial Offences Court and resolved on January the 11th, 2023, those vehicles were there then. And we were advised the property was in compliance, and that's why it was resolved. Those vehicles are still there now. So there's been a brand new property standards issued against 1004 West Black Lake Road for items that Mr. Bertram believed at that time were okay to be there because it was in compliance, save and except that white cube van. Mr. Bertram will give evidence, and I can advise, and I also have another witness here as well, Jean Heron, who's been around the property since that order in January 11, 2023. Due to Mr. Bertram's health, there's been no other items brought to the property. That property, the way it looks now, was extremely clean to look that way, and told that we were advised that was being brought into compliance. We will go through photographs as well that I have submitted. Unfortunately, I received this package of photographs on Friday of the long weekend at 4 p.m. So I didn't actually open them until this morning. So we have gone through all the photographs. And as long as that's okay, I would like Mr. Bertram to give some information with respect to where those are and where the view is, because 1004 West Black Lake Road is completely surrounded by a fence. And when that fence is closed, none of it's visible from the road. It's only when that fence is open, but it is completely closed. The reason for the appeal today, of course, is one, we'd like the order to be removed, but if not, to be amended to allow Mr. Bertram the time in order to make these requirements. So we really need to know what specifically is needed to be cleaned if there is a breach. And then we would just be requesting a modification to the order to allow him reasonable time to do that. With respect to that green building where the building permit is taken out, that green building was also there January 11, 2023, and was no issue at that time. From January 11th until these new orders were issued, there has been no change to those buildings from January 11th to May 16th. So in January 11th, the property was in compliance, all charges were dismissed, and now we're back, like I say, less than 3 months later on a new property standards order, giving him until July the 31st, 2023. 19 days for an elderly man who has some significant health issues that we'll get to as well. When he thought his property was completely in compliance is completely unfair. In order to get the building permit sorted and get a contractor in to assist with the roof, there's no way that can happen by July 31st. So, I mean, it's my submission that the time frame, if not the order itself, has already been dealt with on a prior order in January, but the time frame of a new order to be brought is completely and totally unreasonable. So subject to the board's approval, if Mr. Bertram would like to go through the photographs, if that's possible. Are you agreeable to that?
Yeah, that's fine. Please proceed.
Thank you. So if I could please start on page 14 with the first picture of the white cube van. Mr. Bertram, do you need to swear Mr. Bertram in, or is it informal that he's giving evidence in good faith?
I wasn't swearing anybody in.
No, that's fine. You can proceed.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to assist with a few questions just to sort of move this along so it doesn't take too long. Mr. Bertram, let Why do I have a different picture up?
There's a picture of a cube van on this one.
It's a different one that's on the page.
Ah, that's the right picture. Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure I'm scrolling down on a different page. That's why. So with respect to the pictures, we heard from Mr. Kennedy that all the photographs were taken on June the 27th, I believe he said, when he reattended at the property. The issue with that, and we'll hear from Mr. Bertram as we go ahead, is many of the photos that are in here, these items have been removed prior to those dates. So I don't know if there's different old photographs have got in with new photographs, but there's many items that have been removed since prior to these photographs being taken. So with respect to the white cube van, Mr. Bertram, can you just advise what the status of it is and what is happening with it, please?
Okay, very good. The status was I had it sold, and the guy had his own medical problems and he opted out of the deal. And I've got it, there's for sale sign on several of the vehicles. I've got somebody interested in it from South River, which is coming down shortly, but doesn't matter. It's either it's going to be going or it'll be scrapped. I'm just trying to get some money out of it that I've got into it. Okay, but it's going, it has not moved.
If we can go to the next page of the photographs. I can show you one here.
Okay, thank you.
With respect to the boat at the top, can you tell me if that boat's seaworthy and if you use it?
Yes.
And we're going to keep this as
Yeah,
short and sweet as possible.
yes, it is. I obviously haven't been out enjoying the beautiful boating weather we've had, but that I do have several boats which are.
Is that boat
Yes,
seaworthy?
yes,
Okay.
yes,
This here is the green building.
yes.
Use the paint flaking at the top here. Is
Yeah.
there paint flaking anywhere else, or is that the only spot?
Oh, it needs some paint, but it's
Is that
flaking.
the only spot?
Yes.
The paint's flaking,
Yes.
yes or no? Okay. Can you tell me what, now I'm gonna move to the next set of photos. Sorry, I'm moving yeah, there we go. The bottom photo there of this,
Yeah.
of the sea can. Can you tell me what that is?
That's a sea can with stuff that I've been putting into my sea can to get it out and off the ground.
The stuff that's in front of it,
Yes.
where is it going?
It's going in the sea can.
And if we can just go to the next photograph. The bottom photograph there, can you tell me what those are?
Yeah. This is the one to the left is a storage container, and I've got my ATV in there and my motorcycle. And the building to the right is my sandblasting equipment.
If we go to the next photograph.
Okay. Yeah.
Can you tell me if the top photograph, does it still, and the bottom, I can't get them both on
Yeah.
the
Okay.
screen,
No
but
problem. Yeah.
does that still look like that today?
Does that look like that today? I'm just trying to see where we are. Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, can you tell me what some of that is and where
Okay.
it's going?
Okay, all behind the green building is all steel beams, which I'm using to, I've already got the cribbing up on the building for the building permit. I've got all the steel beams that are going through to lift it up, and the shingles and stuff, all the material to redo the building.
And that's that green building.
That's a green building, yes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and have you spoke to a contractor about redoing the green building?
Yes, I've spoken to a house raiser, and he's going to, we're going to get that. He discussed it in August, that he can lift the building, and then we can continue on with fixing it from the bottom up.
So what would be an estimated time if he comes in August to do that for you to have the building complete?
I would have to say from what he says, and then I have to get somebody to do the roof and that sort of thing like that. I'm thinking into October. I'm hopefully they can get it done by that time.
At the end of October?
Yes.
If we can go to the next photograph, please. Can you tell me what that bus is at the bottom?
Okay, that's a bus that has been converted to a motor home, which I've used for putting storage stuff in there for when my family comes. I've got an extensive family. They stay in the bus, and also too, as I use it for going moose hunting when I when I can get out and about and do that. It's got an ATV in the back of that bus. It's got, you can drive the ATV into the bus.
And I believe that takes care of most of those photographs. If we can go down then to page, sorry, page number 45. I believe it's page 3 of my photographs that I submitted. Can you tell me what that, where that view is when you stand
Okay,
and
that's
taking that?
standing right at the gate, looking in. I've dropped a cubic yard, like a big bin there to any extra surplus or steel and stuff. I've gotten rid of into the bin, into the 40 cubic yard bin.
This is the view from the road with the gate open.
With
This
the
is what
gate
you
open,
would see
correct.
driving by.
Yes.
And the property's fully fenced.
Yeah, well, yes.
Okay. And this dirt that's in the back there, that pile of dirt, what's happening with that?
All behind the garage. And it's a very wet area there in the spring. There's pictures prior to this year that were in the water. All this dirt is be leveled out so we all can have a nice lawn.
And if we can just go to the next page, please, number 4. This is the picture of that green building. Is that the only paint that's peeling on the green building?
Yeah, it's yeah.
I have some medical records that were submitted, some substantial medical records. I know that they've been redacted for the purpose of today, but I'm wondering, does everybody have those medical records?
Yes, those are provided to the committee.
Okay. I'm not going to take Mr. Bertram through each and every one, but if page 1 of those medical records, there's a letter there that Mr. Bertram's had done up from his doctor dated June the 27th, 2023, just advising what his current medical condition is. And that the last statement on that is that his current focus at present should be on his health and attending his specialist appointments. So if we go through those medical records, you can see on page 3 that Mr. Bertram has been attending the regional cancer program. He's on multiple medications. I can take you through these one by one, or if you've already looked through them, I'm not sure how you want the evidence to be entered in.
As I said, that information has been provided to committee. I don't think it's necessary to go through it all line by line.
Okay, so the gist of it is, and in that statement, in that letter, that correspondence letter, it just says what his substantial health concerns are. At this point in time, one, it was impossible for Mr. Bertram to bring any more items into the property since the last order from January 2023. But his health concerns have been there substantially to sort of limit him in removing any of the items from the property as well. Mr. Bertram has always advised Mr. Kennedy that if you want to meet him at the property and go over things, that he would be happy to do that. There's been a definite difficulty in communication with how that happens and going over the property and what exactly needs to be done. So I think a lot of why this is back here and the significance of it is that he thought that everything was in compliance. So the significance with knowing what his health is, because this was just before the court in January of 2023, where Mr. Kennedy was present, he heard submissions with respect to Mr. Bertram's health. He heard submissions with respect to Mr. Bertram's limited financial position at the time. To issue new orders 3 months later with 19 days of a time limit is just completely unreasonable. I do have Jean Heron here. I don't know if you want to hear from her with respect to what the property looked like in January and compared to what it looks like now and compared to what these photographs. She can also give evidence with respect to some of these photographs to confirm that they were taken well in advance of June 27th, and the property does not look even today like those photographs. I'm not saying it needs some work still, because it does, but that it doesn't look that bad. Does the board wish to hear from Ms. Heron?
We're happy to hear from her. Is your presentation finished, Ms. Hall?
My presentation would be finished. Other than that, I've said basically what Ms. Heron's going to say. I don't know how formal or informal the tribunal hearing is. So if it's going to be hearsay evidence, then I can have Ms. Heron, she's sitting right here, should be able to put that on the record.
Okay, well, if you're done with your presentation, then I'd like to ask the committee if they have any questions for you or for anyone.
Certainly.
Member Bridgman?
Thank you, Chair Stokes. Is this where I'm asking Mr. Kennedy for some clarifications too? This is generally open to questions?
Yes.
Okay. If I could, Mr. Kennedy, I'm wondering with 1004, and you showed us that there was a probation for that. Was that removed from this particular property?
There is no probation with respect to, oh, sorry.
Excuse me. Yeah, I'm asking Mr. Kennedy.
Through the chair, just looking quickly at the probation order, one thing I did miss is actually at the top, it shows the information number plus the count. So just looking back on the actual information that was listed, Ms. Hall is correct. Count 2 was withdrawn on agreements that count 1 would receive the probation order. Regardless, that is more or less just a history in regards to what each property is looking at with Mr. Bertram based on what I described. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I have procedural or another question to Mr. Kennedy, because I'm sitting here thinking if we decide that we are going to uphold what you are recommending, I assume the appellant that we may end up, if the deadline isn't met, we're going back to court. Am I not correct on that?
Through the chair, that would be correct. If the committee decides to confirm the order as is, Mr. Bertram would automatically revert into non-compliance for this property. And at this point, based on the extensive history, staff would be looking to hire their own contractors to clean it up, as well as possibly issuing further charges.
Please go ahead. No, absolutely.
Through the chair, admittedly, we've had some difficulty, not necessarily on our end as far as backups go, but I think in the last 2 or 3 months in a row, a justice of the peace has not shown up for our court dates. We only get one a month. So there is some hesitance, if you will, in regards to the provincial courts at this point. I'm not sure what's going on, if it's just maybe summer vacation, but that is something the provincial courts have to figure out. But at this point, we issue charges, and if we do a part 3, which is an information and summons, which is the only thing we can do in a property standard situation, we issue it for a first appearance, and it goes forward from there, depending on availability for legal counsel, and if the JP is present at the time that we attend court, it gets dealt with through that whole process. So there isn't necessarily a backlog, if you will. It's just sometimes it does take longer than expected.
Yes, thank you. I tell you what I was thinking, because if I heard it was going to be 3 months or whatever, it seems to me we can proceed, because we can always withdraw that from the court system if this property comes into compliance. Can we not?
Through the chair, yes, that is an option. Frankly, I don't believe I would withdraw these charges. Again, based on the history, there's been continued non-compliance, regardless of what Ms. Hall said. There have been underlying discussions between myself and Mr. Bertram at the properties in regards to some of the items that she talked about that she may not be aware of, specifically the green building. So based on the conversations I've had and the history that I have with Mr. Bertram, taking into account the former history from former officers looking at this, I think Mr. Bertram, we would be looking for a conviction and some sort of penalty in this matter.
One more, sorry, Chair Stokes. I didn't communicate that very well. I meant we go ahead with your recommendation, which means it's going to start that whole process back into the court system. And if it gets cleaned up before it gets there, you have the ability to say it's been cleaned up and cancel the date for the hearing. Am I not correct?
Yeah, again, through the chair, that is an option available to us. If we do issue a charge and he does come into compliance before even our first appearance date, then yeah, we do have an option of withdrawing. So.
Do any of the other members of the committee have any questions or comments? I have one in relation to the, and it's I guess giving Mr. Kennedy a chance in regard to the comments by the appellant and his agent about the communication missteps or lack of communication between the township and the appellant. And I'd just like your comments on that, please, Mr. Kennedy.
Through the chair, as I just alluded to with Member Bridgman's question, I've met Mr. Bertram at the property multiple times in the past couple of years. We've had multiple discussions. We've walked through the property multiple times. I've pointed out exactly what needs to go. And from what I've seen in the investigations that I've conducted and the site visits that I've conducted, it appears that while he may clean up things, at the same time, it appears that other things come onto the property. So it's almost like a revolving door, if you will. The photos that were taken on June 27th are exactly what was depicted from my own eyes on June 27th. If things have been removed between that date and today's date of July 4th, that great. But what I saw on June 27th is exactly what I had shown. In respect to the green building, me and Roy have had a discussion, multiple discussions on that building. And through my management, if you will, of the situation, I told him on numerous occasions that I wanted to concentrate that property mainly on the exterior items. He was well aware that that building was in non-compliance. I've told him that on multiple occasions. However, I did not put it in an order because I was hoping that we could first get the exterior property cleaned and then after the fact to deal with the green building. So essentially you're doing one thing at a time. Maybe that was the wrong move because obviously there's been some arguments in respect to that. So going forward, I guess in hindsight, everything should be put on the order in the first instance. That's my own mistake. But that was me trying to gain compliance in a different way than putting everything on an order and having everything dealt with all at once.
Thank you. One other question to you, Mr. Kennedy. With respect to the portion of the property that is deemed to be environmentally protected, are there any materials or items on that property that constitute an environmental hazard that are priority items that would need to be removed, or if they're left there, would it cause any additional problem?
Through the chair, the only thing that I can think of off the top of my head that may, in a sense, like leak oil or something like that would be the black bus. And based on Mr. Bertram's comments and my evidence photos, you can clearly see that bus has not moved. And I can confirm that it hasn't moved since I started my initial investigation when I began working for the township of Muskoka Lakes. He claims that people live in that bus when people come over. I will point out to committee that through the zoning bylaw that is not permitted. There is no main use on this property for residential, and people frankly cannot be living in a bus on the property. So that would be the only thing in the environmentally protected area that may cause some sort of leakage of oil, fluids, transmission fluid, whatever have you. Other items that are within that EP zone are the back end of a tractor trailer. And there's a large pile. I think Miss Hall had posted a picture with the dirt pile. That's most likely in the EP zone, and in behind that dirt pile, there is a large pile of rocks, which most likely wouldn't cause any environmental concern. But other than that, I don't believe there's anything else within that area that would be a cause for concern on the environmentally protected side.
Thank you. And just so I'm clear and the committee's clear on the request or suggestion of extending the timetable, that was just for the building, correct? Or was that for cleanup of the entire property to the satisfaction of the township?
No, it was for the cleanup of the entire property as well.
Okay.
If I just may, with respect to the first party who was advising if the prosecution would have the ability to withdraw if should this matter go before provincial offences court. I mean, I think Mr. Kennedy said it clear that they wouldn't be in a position that they would want to withdraw. The only reason to put this before provincial offences court and involve the provincial offences court again would be in order to be a deterrent to Mr. Bertram. He doesn't need that deterrence. Mr. Kennedy has noted in the document that's before here today, before the committee, that Mr. Bertram is working towards bringing the property into compliance. He very well believes that it will be. The misunderstanding comes from not knowing what. I think if something was in writing and could be provided, what needs to be removed to bring the property into compliance, given some time to be able to do so. With his health, he has to hire someone, and his limited finances, that he would be able to bring it into compliance. The biggest issue that we have is if this goes back before a provincial offences court on a fail to comply with an order, that we have a breach of probation. And that is completely, totally different again, because that's something that if it's not withdrawn, Mr. Bertram can be looking at custody over that. And that's something that this isn't needed for this. The only reason this was appealed was because there was an extension of time and clarification of what needed to be done to bring the property into compliance, nothing else. With respect to the bus, I think there was a misunderstanding. I don't think it's not that people are living in the bus. He uses the bus when he goes hunting. So it is, although some of the vehicles aren't licensed and drivable right now, due to COVID, he hasn't been doing that. So if he's going to relicense them, if that could be put in there, if it needs to be relicensed or removed. But he needs to know, because like I say, in January of 2023, that bus wasn't a problem. That bus was there, and not one thing was said about that bus having to be moved or environmental problems. All of those things were there. And Mr. Kennedy said they've been there for 2.5 years. So now 3 months after they resolve the one order and get the probation order, they're bringing it back on another property standard. So I think just an extension of time in order to do that on both the building for sure, because he has to have a contractor come in. And there was no discussion of that at the last court date. So if there was private discussions with Mr. Bertram, it certainly has never been before myself or before the court before. So those are my submissions, is that I don't think this needs to go back before provincial offences court. It just needs an extension to allow Mr. Bertram to understand what needs to be done, and then have an extension to allow him to do that. He said October 31st with respect to the building. I don't know how long of an extension. I know he's done substantial cleanup now. If there could be an extension granted.
Yeah, Mr. Kennedy.
Through the chair, as you'll see in all three of these orders and in common practice with all property standards orders, staff in all municipalities keep them quite vague. And the reason for that is if you get too specific, the issue becomes where they may remove all the items that are on that order. But then, as I've already indicated before, Mr. Bertram brings other stuff in at the same time. So in a sense, the stuff that he brings in wouldn't actually be under the property standards order. So in this sense, with it being vague, this covers everything, whether he brings it in after the fact or not, to be compliant. So that's why it turns into a little bit, maybe it is miscommunication. I don't know. But I can safely say that I've had multiple discussions with Mr. Bertram, walked the property multiple times with Mr. Bertram, pointed out what needs to go and what can stay. And I'm not too sure where the miscommunication has happened in between now and then. But to me, it's been quite clear that all these things need to be gone. And in respect to not having certain items on the order to begin with, I will remind committee that we did receive multiple complaints in April in regards to both of these properties. This isn't me going back after we gained a conviction just to do a proactive inspection to see what was going on. We received a lot of complaints in regards to both properties, and most of the complaints indicated that they felt that other items had been brought in over the winter time. So that's why we went to investigate. And upon my investigation, as you'll see on the other property as well, it does appear that other items were brought in, even though he was removing items at the same time. Thank you.
If I may, just in rebuttal, just to that, my personal telephone conversation with Mr. Kennedy in December of 2022, before this matter was resolved, went over exactly, there was issues then with specification of what needed to be removed. We went over it. At that point, the property was 98% in compliance. I understand he's saying more items have been brought in. Both Mr. Kennedy or Mr. Bertram and Ms. Heron both will agree that there hasn't been. But with respect to the larger items like vehicles that have been there 2.5 years, they weren't an issue in January, and now they're an issue. That's my complaint, is that or my dispute is that Mr. Bertram he doesn't know what is to be removed and what is not. If the bus was okay in January, but now the bus isn't okay in March, nobody's advised him of that. I'm not saying the order has to be amended to specifically say that. The order could be extended with a specific maybe note or email from Mr. Kennedy to myself to confirm what needs to be done, and then go and have a re-inspection and get the property there, and then on the hopes then that it would stay the way it is.
I think we all understand, and based on the explanation of Mr. Kennedy, the spirit of the order and the reason why it is kept vague. I think he explained that very well. I guess my question is to the appellant and his agent, given the serial nature of offenses on behalf of Mr. Bertram and ignoring orders over a period of many years, and I guess the question is, why would the committee believe that given an extension, say to October or a month or two from now, that he would comply with those orders and not, we won't be back here, 6 months from now?
Well, with respect to 1004 that we're dealing with, there hasn't been multiple orders with respect to it. There was one previously where the township came in and cleaned up, and Mr. Bertram paid for that on his taxes. The other order that was before the court in January the 11th, 2023 was withdrawn because this property was brought into compliance. So Mr. Bertram did it then. He brought it into compliance. That's my dispute exactly before this board, is that in January 2023, the property looks like it looks now. And I was advised, Mr. Bertram was advised, and the prosecution was advised that the property was brought into compliance. So the charge was withdrawn. That was January the 11th. Between January the 11th and March, when this new order was written, I can't find the date off the top of my head, but May 16th. So 4 months, during which was the winter time. Whether it's the snow melted and Mr. Kennedy didn't realize that those items were there, and that's what's caused the complaint from the neighbors, or what's going on, I don't know. But the reason is that in January the 11th, Mr. Bertram worked diligently from August or September, when I was retained anyways, from September to December. When we brought it into compliance, we brought it back in January then for it to be resolved. So he had done what he had to do. Since Mr. Kennedy reattending, he's even cleaned it up further from the way it looked then. He's cleaned it up further. He's had skip units in there and taken out, and he's had that cleaned up. So there's no reason to put it back before the provincial offences court. If it's extended and the time to comply is extended, if Mr. Bertram doesn't comply by the time of that new compliance order, it would go to the provincial offences court anyways, because he would be in non-compliance and a fail to comply could be issued. So that's all that we're requesting, is that the timeframes be extended to something reasonable for a man with health issues and financial issues, and understanding that he thought his property was in compliance.
So just so I'm clear, you're telling the committee that there's no reason to believe that Mr. Bertram will not have the property cleaned up sufficiently should he be granted an extension?
That's correct. And on the understanding that Mr. Kennedy advised exactly what needs to be done to bring it into compliance. So as we know.
Mr. Kennedy, I think you had a comment.
Through the chair, in looking at the property file, there's quite a lot in here, and from what I can gather, there's been 6 property standards orders issued on this property in total, including the one that we're dealing with right now. And in looking at the property file, I actually did just find a court order from March 21st, 2017, specific for 1004 and 1011 West Black Lake Road, where it is ordered that Roy Garnett Bertram be and hereby is permanently restrained and prohibited from having or storing any garbage, waste material, refuse, debris, scrap metal, building or construction materials or other similar material out of doors, and B, having or storing any inoperative, discarded, dismantled or abandoned vehicles or trailers or parts or pieces from any such vehicles or trailers. Just so committee is aware of that. That is from 2017.
Thank you.
If I may, that is the one order that I was speaking to previously on 1004. That's the only order that's been before the provincial offences court. There may have been other property standards orders. I wouldn't know about those unless they go before the court, because they've been complied with. So there's no disadvantage to the township extending these orders. And then if he doesn't comply, then he can be charged with the fail to comply and be put before the provincial offences court. But he honestly thought that he was in compliance in January and nothing more has been brought in. So like I said, whether it's because the snow has melted in the way it looks, but nothing more has been brought onto the property, as stated by Mr. Bertram.
Thank you, Chair Stokes. Through you. Well, Ms. Hall, I think we just got our answer to the list of things that are not in compliance from that order that you referred to a number of years ago, which includes all of those vehicles and everything else. So if I might, Chair Stokes, to me, it's really, are we going to extend this 4 months or are we going to leave it where it is? Because based on the history of this property, I have no confidence that it's going to come into compliance otherwise. And I don't want any more of our staff spending time on this property at this point in time. So I think you know where I stand on that.
If I may, Madam Chair, just before decision is made, in January the 11th, 2023.
Thank you. No, thank you. You've had your say. Thank you. Does anyone else on the committee have any comments or questions this time?
I agree with Bridgman's analysis of that. And I think it's, with the neighbors who have to live there, look or drive by or deal with this every day, I don't think it should be put further back on them to have to police this or reach back or make complaints. I think it's time to draw the line in the sand to where it gets dealt with.
Thank you. Brown, do you have anything to add?
Nothing more than what they've said. I agree.
Thank you.
Potential. One is to confirm the order, the other.
So now, if there are any members of the public in attendance that wish to speak, clearly state your name, address, and postal code to the secretary and follow with your comments. Based on committee's comments and recommendations, the order will be upheld. And I'd like to read the following motion. Moved by member Quinn, second by member Brown. Be it resolved that order PS-2023-02 dated May 16th, 2023 be confirmed. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Okay, now we're on to order PS-2023-03. This matter regarding the orders PS/2023/03 dated May 16, 2023, regarding the deficiencies in the exterior yard at 1011 West Black Lake Road as follows. 1, removal of all discarded items and materials from the property and ensure the property not return to the current state of cleanliness or worse. 2, removal of all inoperable motor vehicles, boats, and machinery from the property or return them to a legal running order. And if necessary, valid license plates shall be attached to all relevant motor vehicles. Compliance with this order is required on or before June 5, 2023. Mr. Kennedy, can you please provide an overview of the circumstances leading to the issuance of this order?
Through the chair, as I indicated in the first appeal, this will be quite similar to the last one we did. So again, this property has also been subject to contraventions under the Property Standards Bylaw 1999-34 for a number of years, again dating back to the early 2000s. The property owner, Mr. Roy Garnett Bertram, again, has been charged and convicted on multiple occasions, both under property standards as well as zoning on this property. There has been actual municipality has gone into the property before and conducted their own cleanups at the owner's cost. During the most recent court matter, Mr. Bertram was convicted and, as discussed, served with a probation order from the provincial court on January 11, 2023, not to commit the same or similar offense for a period of 2 years. After this was done, and a few months later on April 28, 2023, staff received numerous complaints in regards to this property, in regards to the exterior yard, and people had stated that it had returned to its previous state before last year. After complaints were received, an investigation was started and a site visit was conducted on May 5th, 2023. As a result of this site visit, it was confirmed that there were still numerous items on the property that were in contravention of the property standards bylaw for the township of Muskoka Lakes. It did appear that additional items had been brought in on the property. While it was noted that some of the areas of the property had been cleaned up, it was replaced by other things. If we could pull up Appendix 2, please. That's the wrong property. Okay. So as we see on the screen now, these photos were taken on May 5th, 2023, around 10:45 a.m. At the property known as 1011 West Black Lake Road, owned by Mr. Roy Garnett Bertram. And these photos were taken by myself. As we scroll through the photos, to keep it broad, we will see that there's numerous areas on the property that have inoperable vehicles, junk, scrap of any kind, plastics, metals, woods, what have you, which are scattered across a majority of the property. They seem to be in piles, split, where some of them are metal piles, some of them have tires, some of them are mainly consisting of wood. And you will see if we keep scrolling down, right here, we do have a dump bin that has been on the property. It's from what I gather in discussions with Mr. Bertram, this has been filled, taken away from the property and brought back in multiple times. But as I said, it does appear that while that happens and items are being removed from the property over time, it appears that other items are being brought back in at the same. Just scrolling down even more, we'll just continue on. I'm doing pretty much a circle of the property, following the footpath and the driveway that goes around. We'll see 2 shipping containers that are at the rear of the property that have multiple items within, mostly wood. But I think at this time, I think committee probably understands what I'm trying to say at this point is the property is still in non-compliance with the property standards bylaw. And based on the complaint and the investigation through the site visit on May 5th, 2023, an order was issued onto the property. If we could pull up Appendix 1. So this is the order that was issued to the property on May 16th, 2023. For 1011 West Black Lake Road. This was served via registered mail as well as posted to the property. I will indicate that it does appear based on review of some photographs that I did actually the first page of the order. I did post the wrong first page on this property, but regardless, the registered mail version of the service was the service that was deemed through the Building Code Act of Ontario. Go to page number 3, please. So again, and as I stated in the last order, we keep these quite vague. So this is mainly for the exterior yard. There were no issues with the buildings at the time. Based on the inspection, multiple piles of discarded items, materials scattered around the property, consisting of metals, plastics, wood, fill, rocks, tires, etc. And multiple inoperable vehicles, boats, and other machinery are present on the property. The time to comply was June 5th, 2023. If we go to Appendix 3. So for committee's information, as much like the last one, I did a re-inspection on June 27th, 2023. Photographs were taken around 3:17 p.m. By myself at the property known as 1011 West Black Lake Road. Again, virtually I'm doing more or less a circle around the property where the driveway and footpath are, starting on the left side of the house and going around to the back and to the front side on the right. So as we scroll through, we will see that there still remains to be numerous junk items that are on the property. While it does appear that some areas have been cleaned up and organized, there's still multiple items that need to be removed from the property. The truck, if you go back up one, the bottom photo here of this truck, this is the first time I've seen this truck move from its original location since I've been here 2.5 years. So I'm confident that maybe even today that truck has been removed, but it is unknown at this time. It was present on June 27, 2023. Again, as we scroll through the photos, we will clearly see that there still remains to be discarded items, wood, metals, plastic, tires, but it does appear that some effort has been made to continually clean up the property. But overall, the property does remain in non-compliance through our property standards bylaw. Again, if we could pull up Appendix 5 now. The zoning. So this is Appendix 5, much like the last appeal. This first photograph is an aerial photo from 2018, showing the property boundaries of 1011 West Black Lake Road. And below in yellow, it'll show that the property is zoned as R3. While there is a main use for residential, which is compliant with the bylaw, accessory uses do not allow for automobile yards, storage of junk items, etc., or any type of commercial use related to machinery or vehicles. If we go to Appendix 4, please. And so committee, we have this on record. This is the same probation order that was listed in the first appeal for 1004 West Black Lake Road. This shows that there is a current probation order issued to Mr. Roy G. Bertram. And again, I'll read it. The defendant shall comply with the following conditions. The defendant shall not commit the same offense or any related or similar offense or any offense under a statute of Canada or Ontario or any other province of Canada that is punishable by imprisonment. Number 2, the defendant shall appear before the court as and when required. And number 3, the defendant shall notify the court of any change in the defendant's address. That is all the evidence that I wish to provide, and I will defer over to the appellant. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
thank you.
Yeah, does the appellant, applicant or agent have a presentation that he or she wishes to make?
Yes, please.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Similar facts with respect to 1004 and 1011. I will just state that, and I don't know the exact date. I don't know if Mr. Kennedy can assist or not, but Mr. Bertram's owned this property approximately 5 to 6 years. That's it. So this isn't like a longstanding ownership of the last property. There's never been an order to tidy or order to clean on this property. That was on 1004. So I know the two kind of merged together, but this property hasn't had a cleanup order on it. There was a prior order from August 27th, 2021. That's the only time that this matter has been before this property's been before the Provincial Offences Court. There was a conviction for fail to comply with an order at that time. The property was deemed to be brought into compliance at that time. There was a conviction and the probation order that Mr. Kennedy's presented and put before the court. Again, there's a miscommunication or non-clarification with respect to what it takes to bring this property into compliance. In January the 11th, 2023, Mr. Bertram believed, and I was advised, he was advised, the court was advised that the property was brought into compliance. Mr. Bertram is here. He'll give some evidence with respect to some of those photographs. Specifically with respect to a couple of the vehicles, and I don't know if I need to actually bring the photographs up. There was 2 vans on the property. If you did want to bring me to page 59, that's where the one van is. The van in that top photograph, Mr. Bertram, is it still on the property?
No, it is not.
Can you tell me when it's been was removed from the property?
I'd have to say, when would you say? 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, yeah. There was 2 vans and both of them are gone. I used them for storing of firewood.
There's also 2 Dodge trucks and another part of this, the photographs. Are they still on the property?
One's on a trailer, the one that Rob had mentioned that was on the hill there, it's on a trailer ready to go. And the other one is there as well. Now these vehicles can be insured and plated, but I can only drive 2 vehicles at one time.
So out of the vehicles that are on the property, there's 3. There's a car, a Toyota car, a Toyota truck, and a Dodge pickup truck with a snowplow, all licensed, insured, and being driven.
Yes.
out of the ones not being driven, there's a winch truck that we see in the photographs. And then there's a Dodge truck that I believe you're doing some repairs to.
Yes.
Other than that, is there any other vehicles on the property now? This
Yeah.
the one that we saw in that picture that we just had up, that page 59, there's a picture of a white pickup truck there. Does that belong to you?
No, that does not belong to me. It's licensed and it's plated. It's one of my tenants.
With respect to the boats that are on the property, do they run? Are they usable?
Yes.
Again, it's Mr. Bertram's request that not that he doesn't want to be in compliance with this order. It's just that the time frame on the order, I won't put all back into evidence the submissions with respect to Mr. Bertram's medical history. You have all the paperwork, same paperwork that was filed for the first appeal with respect to his significant medical issues that have delayed and made him unable to comply with the order by June the 5th in 19 days. So in January the 11th, when this was before the court 2023, the property was deemed to be in compliance. Mr. Bertram has advised me and will advise that no new items have been brought on the property since that date. So the items that are on there, Mr. Bertram understood that they could remain on there and that he would be in compliance. He does have bins there. He has been taking and removing items and will continue to do so. What he requires is an extension of the order from June the 5th to allow him time to comply with the order and clean up the property. So this isn't a significant property that he has owned for many, many, many years. He's only owned it, I believe, 5 or 6 years at the very most. So it hasn't been something that has been constantly before the property standards committee. It hasn't been something that has been taking the time. It is just something that if Mr. Bertram could receive clarification and an extension of time, that he would be able to comply in order to bring this, in order to bring it into compliance and get this cleaned up. Subject to any questions, I believe those are my submissions for this file.
Thank you. Does the committee have any questions for the appellant, the agent, or Mr. Kennedy? Member Bridgman?
Thank you, Chair Stokes. I'm just a little curious on the medical issue that is coming up here. And I look at the records, and on June 27th, which is the same day, interestingly, that Mr. Kennedy attended the property, that is the first exhibit from, I gather, a local doctor that is your exhibit. And then there's another one showing an appointment in September. So, and the appointment is at the cancer center. So my direct question is, has there been a diagnosis of cancer here? Because it's not on that first letter.
Yes.
And I'm just curious to know why this, I mean, this is not long-term to me. So please help me understand the timing of all of this.
Certainly 2 years ago. So this letter that was just written has been written up to date to give you what Mr. Bertram's health is as of today. 2 years ago, Mr. Bertram was diagnosed with prostate cancer, commutes to Royal Victoria Hospital in Barrie and has treatments there for that. He also undergoes foot treatments 4 times a week in Gravenhurst for a wound that he has on his foot. And recently, and Mr. Bertram can probably provide more information on this, is he's had a problem with his eye. So that has been, he's been blind in one eye, and that has been making it that he has to have all the medication and then commute. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Bertram, because that is in there, that he's got that loss of vision in his eye. I think he was admitted March the 2nd of 2023. That's page 5 of those medical records. So, and then the other ones are in there to show the cost and the
I think the question's been answered. We don't need all the detail, I don't think.
Okay, because I was going to say, Mr. Bertram can say what his current health prognosis is. It's still ongoing, and he still goes many times a week for different medical appointments.
Thank you.
Just to follow up, if I could, was that part of your argument in January at the court? hearing?
Was that part of the argument for it not
Yes.
being brought into compliance
Yes.
fast enough?
Yes.
It was noted, but no, before the court was a financial argument that we did. The plea was
That's all I need to know. Thank you.
a financial hardship.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from anyone else on committee? Again, we seem to have a claim of miscommunication of what needs to be done and how it needs to be done and when it needs to be done, et cetera. I just wanted to give Mr. Kennedy an opportunity to speak to that if he wishes.
Thank you. Through the chair, I think much like the first appeal, I've met with Mr. Bertram at the property multiple times, walked the property with him multiple times, pointed out exactly what needs to be removed and what can stay. I've told him on multiple occasions that if he is able to, I think his best option at this property is to build a large storage garage and store all these items inside of a building. I understand that he has financial hardship, so that may not be a feasible option, but that is an option that I've offered to him multiple times before. I'm not too sure where the miscommunication goes. The order is, while it is vague, it is still clear that no debris is to be outside of a building and be on the property. So, you know, while I've said that he has cleaned up some portions of the property, it does appear that every time I go back, there's new items that are present on the property. Whether or not I can't necessarily confirm whether or not that's true, based on complainant information. That is what they claim, that he continually brings items to the property. That there's other issues where he, from what I gather, is he takes them to a different property until we're finished and then brings them back. Again, not sure that I can ever confirm that. But that's the information that I keep getting from our complainants. So again, I'm not sure where the miscommunication is in this sense. I've been to the property, talked to him multiple times, walked the property multiple times. And as I said before, it just continues to be that every single time I go, while there may be progress, there's regression at the same time. And again, it turns into a revolving door, and staff has spent a considerable amount of time and energy to try and gain compliance. And again, we still have not gained that. So.
Okay, thank you. So nothing else from committee? Are there any members of the public in attendance that wish to speak? If so, clearly state your name, address, postal code to the secretary and follow with your comments. I don't believe we have any. Is that correct? So it doesn't, I don't know. I'd like to clarify committee's opinion on this, but it doesn't seem to have been a great deal of information presented to defer or change this order either. Is the committee in agreement with that? All right. So the motion then is moved by member Brown, seconded by member Quinn. Be it resolved that order PS-2023-03 dated May 16, 2023 be confirmed. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. The next order is order PS-2023-05. This matter is regarding the order PS-2023-05 dated May 16, 2023 regarding the deficiencies in the main dwelling and exterior yard at 1008 West Black Lake Road as follows. Main dwelling, repair or replace all defective siding and reapply coating (paint) to the entirety of all exterior walls to ensure it is watertight and free from any loose or deteriorated material. All areas where siding is missing shall require siding to be installed. 2, remove all moss and vegetation from the roof and ensure the roof is in watertight condition. 3, repair or replace the window so that it's free from any cracks and is in a watertight condition. Garage, 1, repair or replace all defective siding and reapply a coating (paint) to the entirety of all exterior walls to ensure it is watertight and free from any loose or deteriorated material. 2, repair or replace the entire roof structure so it is watertight and free of any loose materials and is done in good workmanship. This may require a building permit before commencing the work. 3, repair or replace all broken or cracked windows so that they are returned to a watertight condition and done in good workmanship. Compliance with this order is required on or before July 31st, 2023. I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Kennedy for his comments.
Thank you. Through the chair. This is a little bit different than the last two. We do have a different owner, well related to Mr. Bertram. I will say this property has also been subject to past orders. While the main issue surrounding the previous orders was the cleanliness of the exterior yard. And I will note that in the past, I have had discussions with Mr. Gary Bertram, and it was confirmed that the items that were on this property were as a result of his brother, Mr. Roy Bertram, storing them on Mr. Gary Bertram's property. However, this order is in regards to the state of both the garage as well as the main dwelling unit. So on April 28th, 2023, I received a complaint in regards to the property known as 1008 West Black Lake Road for possible contraventions under the Property Standards Bylaw 1999-34. And as a result of that, I conducted a site visit on May 5th, 2023. Can we pull up Appendix 2, please? So these photos are taken on May 5th, 2023, approximately 10:54 a.m. At the property known as 1008 West Black Lake Road. Photos were all taken by myself. As we scroll through the photos, I think we'll go through these in a little bit more detail. So this white building is what I will call as the garage on the property. As we will see in the first top photo, the roof structure on the garage is fully covered in tarp type material. And as we can see, if we look a little bit closer, the soffit / fascia of the roof is deteriorated heavily. And then going down to the bottom photo, we will see that this window pane that would be on the left side of the building or the north side of the building is broken and is not in a weather-tight condition. We go to the next set. Moving to the front of the garage, we will see that it does appear that the roof structure is sagging and would indicate to me that there is a possible structural issue with the roof structure itself. And as we see, while the grade is a little bit different from the right to the left of the garage, it might be difficult to tell in these photos, but it does appear that there may be some structural issues on the bottom side of this garage that are a cause for concern. Down below. The bottom photo is still the garage. Now this would be on the south side of the garage, and as we can see, mainly on the bottom portion of the garage structure, we'll see that there's some deterioration of the paint and deterioration of the wood siding on the garage that would need to be repaired. Moving back up to the top photo, this is what I will call as the main dwelling units on the property, blue in color. Side board and batten siding surrounds most of the building on the front and the north side. Next photo, please. But moving to, this is the back portion of the main dwelling unit. We will see that on the top photo, there is some blue board and batten siding that's on the right side, but moving over to the sliding patio door, if you will, now we have exposed wood that is untreated and appears to have some sort of water damage on it. And to me, that would not be in a watertight condition. Similar to the bottom photo, there is no siding on that portion of the building. And you will see at the top on the roof structure, it does appear that the soffit and fascia is starting to deteriorate as well. Again, this is the top photo is an extension of the top photo from the last page. We will see on the top portion of the roof, there is no siding up above the first peak. And the bottom photo does depict which would be the south side of the main dwelling unit. There is a broken window. And in relation to the top photo, it is on the leftmost window pane in that photo. I believe that's it. So then can we go to Appendix 1, please? So this is the order that was issued as a result of the site visit, which was issued on May 16th, 2023. It was sent via registered mail as well as posted to the property, depicting that 1008 West Black Lake Road was in contravention of the property standards bylaw 1999-34. If we look at page 3, the first portion is for the main dwelling unit. The first 3 items are as described in the photos with a compliance deadline of July 31st, 2023. And then moving to the bottom of page 3 into page 4, we look at the garage, and the garage as depicted with the contraventions, again, with a time to comply of July 31st, 2023. It will be noted that item 2 under the garage section will need a building permit if there is in fact structural issues with the roof, as that will be required through the Ontario Building Code. If it's a simple replacement of roof shingles, then there is no building permit required. But if there's any structural issues with rafter tails, rafter supports of any kind, it will need a building permit before work can actually commence. If we could move to Appendix 3, please. So again, this is for committee information. These are updated photos from June 27, 2023, approximate time of 3:13 p.m. Depicting again 1008 West Black Lake Road. As we scroll through these, I will simply confirm that no work has been completed on the property since the issuance of the order and the submission of the appeal. The property remains in the same state as what I found it on May 5th, 2023. If we could go to, once you finish that, we can go to Appendix 4. Sorry, actually, to back up this bottom photo and moving forward, we will see that there are small items that have been deposited on this property. Once again, it does appear that these items are from neighboring properties of 1004 West Black Lake Road. The way I can tell this is that Mr. Roy Bertram does like to use half-cut oil tanks as bins, if you will, to store items. But it does appear that some more items have been deposited on the property. While it's not subject to the order, I would like committee to take note of that. Now, if we can go to Appendix 4. So much like, sorry, Appendix, yeah, it should be Appendix 4, not Appendix 5. So this is, again, an aerial photo of 1008 West Black Lake Road. The first picture shows the property boundaries. And below we'll show the zoning overlay from 2023, which shows the property as a predominantly R3 zone with a small sliver of EP zone on the southeast corner of the property. I will confirm that based on the main dwelling unit being there, that this property is in conformity with the zoning bylaw as far as a main dwelling unit and a residential use. However, I have not seen any activity at this property with the dwelling being lived in, but then again, unable to confirm whether or not someone has actually been there in the last couple of years. That is my evidence, and I will defer to the appellant. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the applicant or appellant or have an agent, or would you wish to speak?
I'd like to speak, yes, with one here.
I see that I should have been put up first, other than my brother. Everybody's got a
Sorry,
bad-
I just need to ask a question. We don't need to state Name, address, postcode.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, well, anyways, I did receive by mail the letter stating the fact of miscellaneous infractions, I guess you'd call them, or whatever. And my question to you, Rob, which we've never met before, we may have spoke on the phone once, I think. I'm kind of curious on the fact of what kind of complaints do you get about 1008? For anybody to see the fact of the primer on the back of the garage would basically have to walk behind my property and look at it. I understand the fact of the membrane on top of the roof of the garage. That is a exterior membrane. That's not an old tarp running. It's a membrane made for exterior. I did see when I was up there this spring, that part of the tarp or membrane, I should be calling it a membrane, is let go in one corner in the front. I plan on rectifying that. As far as the roof goes, I don't know whether I'm going to put steel on it or shingles on it or whatever else. I realize it has to be addressed, but I can pretty well guarantee you there's no way that anything can be done before by July 31st. There's no way that that roof can be redone by that time. As far as the paint goes, I agree. Got to get painted. I agree in the garage, the window's broken. Got to get fixed. General maintenance. I got it. No problem with me. The big thing is the fact of the house, the cottage. It's got moss growing on the roof. That is an 8-year-old roof with ice and water shield up and over the whole roof. That is saddled with a big oak tree, which gets no shade in that front of the house, of the cottage. So I guess moss grows on it. Is that a big issue? It seems to be a big issue with you or with this committee. I kind of think the fact, if you look around, you'd find a lot of these places that are shaded in would have growth on the roofs. So I personally can't see that being an issue. I wasn't even going to address that as far as cleaning off the moss. I mean, but you do get up there and sweep it off. Problem, tree. I have to get the tree cut down. Then sun will come in and moss will die and it'll be all gone. I see in your notes here that it kind of paints a dim picture of the roof. There's nothing wrong with the roof. It doesn't leak, nor does the garage roof leak. I noticed all your little insinuations here about the fact of water penetration and whatnot, and not sure whether the water is getting in. I go up to the cottage all the time. That's why the grass is cut all the time. So there's always somebody at the cottage. So it's being used. It's not a building that's just sitting there. It's starting to fall apart and it's leaking inside, and we got buckets inside catching all the water. It's not that way at all. It's a dim view of the property, and I see the tarp, or as I said, membrane. If I trimmed all the way around it and look a little bit better, yes, it would. I mean, I can do that, which I probably will when I have time. But as far as I'm concerned, everything else here, broken glass, paint, it's not an issue with me. I'm not fighting anything about this. I just wanted to come here and say the fact of the roof in the cottage, there's nothing wrong with it. As far as the membrane on the garage, I will address that, trim it up and whatnot till I find that I can put steel on it, or, I mean, have fun trying to get a tradesman right now to get something done in 2 months from now. So as far as the roof goes, I would like to have time to rectify the problem of the roof's garage roof. As far as the house goes, or the cottage, in the backside where the board and batten is missing. There's a reason for that. I have the boards for it. But that slider is coming out and a man door put in. So I wanted to do all this year or maybe next. So that's why the board and batten's not finished there. Because as I said before, that door is coming out, a single man door is going in. And further on would be a bathroom window and a bedroom window where there's no siding. That was going to be a sunroom. I was going to put a sunroom out the back, which I'd have to get a building permit for, no doubt. So I didn't really want to finish that off because it'll be an inside wall. So there's kind of reasons why it's kind of left the way it is. It's not just for the fact it's forgotten about everything. And there is people at the cottage in most cases. My kids now are grown up and through the coop, so they don't really show up all that often anymore. So it's just me. And my dog's dead too, so I got no company, so I don't go up there very often. Anyways, the whole point is I don't have much of an issue with all this, except for the fact of anything that I find that's actually important here is not a little bit of a blemish here and there where the staining isn't perfect or anything else. I mean, so what? I can't say why it's even on here. I can't see why the fact of my garage, 3 walls, 2 sides and the front are all white, no issues. The back has not been painted in a while, which I totally understand, but is that also an issue? I realize the fact if you own something, you should kind of maintain it. I get it. It's all good with me, which I plan on doing. But my main thing was the fact to bring up the fact of the siding for the cottage. It's left like that for a reason, and it has been like that for a number of years, probably 3 or 4 years. So, and this invoice I got is another thing that I wanted to kind of talk to you people about, which I didn't really understand, is order service fee, $250. Order service fee, multiple complaints charge, whatever that means, $500. So I wanted to come and speak my piece here today. So that cost me the $320 I submitted into an envelope for the office here. Then I have an additional $750. And I don't know what this is for. I would like to have that waived. I don't know what goes on here. I'm a taxpayer like probably the guys doing the complaining. I understand down the road there, a guy's got a nice big bill down there, which I haven't been down the road in probably 20 years. And I guess if he's kind of tired of looking at older bills in Torrance, that maybe he should have built somewhere else. So if these are the people who are complaining, I think the fact of maybe the township could kind of look at that aspect and have a little bit of mercy on all us guys that are not exactly have our, $1 million build. And basically, I'm not saying the fact that you shouldn't maintain your building. I do agree with the fact that I was quite embarrassed to receive this. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Does the committee have any questions?
Not for you, thank you. Is this a application or this property, does it have long history of outstanding issues similar to the other two that we heard from today? Or is this a more current situation?
Through the chair, as I indicated in my presentation, there has been some past orders. However, it was surrounding the exterior property, and it was directly related to the other 2 properties we heard earlier today. Nothing in a sense as regards to the condition of both buildings, the garage or the dwelling.
And I understand through the bylaw that you've looked at to see the deficiencies. Is one of the concerns you know, if there's emergency there, are people going in if there's roof or structural issues?
Through the chair, I think maybe the process is what needs to be described here. So when we receive a property standards complaint for, say, it was simply for the roof of the garage, as a property standards officer, we have to go and we have to look at every single aspect on the property. So while Mr. Bertram may not agree that the moss on the roof is a big issue, it's something that we noted and that we have to mark down on the order. Because if we don't, and then something happens as it regards to that, then the municipality is actually liable if there's a mistake that happens. So while there are some items that I do agree may seem minor in nature, we do have to list those to ensure that they are complied with. So that's kind of where complaints arise, and yeah, maybe if it was just one item that was complained on, which turns into 5 or 6 different items, that's just the way property standards has to work. That's the way we are taught through our Ontario Property Standards Association. So unfortunately, that's kind of where we stand at this point.
And Mr. Bertram, I think, has showed he's done some stuff in the past, and maybe this is to you, Mr. Bertram, if you were going to work to some of these items or to these items on the list, what do you feel is a fair time to you financially or physically to be able to get people forward to do that work?
Well, as far as siding down the back of the cottage, I have no issues on I have no intent in putting any siding up there till I decide on the fact of if I'm going to go ahead with a screened in porch or not. As far as the slider goes in the back there, the other corner of the cottage will be rectified probably within the month. I have the door in my trailer at the cottage right now to put in there and take out that old slider. So when that is finished, then I will go ahead and board and batten that, and also the end up above on the second floor or the above first floor. As far as a cracked window goes, looking at the cottage still at that end of the building, that is 2 smoked glass windows, and they're thermal pane. So they're basically 1 inch thick, and 2 5 mil pieces of glass put together as a unit. The inside one is cracked for the fact of the heat from the fireplace, the wood stove rather, sorry, which it's not tempered glass. So one thing to learn, don't put any non-tempered glass by a heat source. It'll crack, which it did. I'm sure that's what you're talking about, as being a broken window. So that is not, there's no water penetration through there either. So that is a situation where I have to order a piece of glass, put it in, which I plan on doing that this year. As far as the tree to come down up front of the building, I don't know when I can get an arborist in to take that down. That would be beneficial to me, of course, because it is leaning over the cottage, which I guess the only good thing about this would be the fact of, I did notice that when I was looking at the moss up in the front. I thought, holy Christ, I didn't realize this tree is right over the cottage. Well, it's got to come down. So that may not be done this year either. I could comply with pretty well anything on here except for the garage roof, which I will, as you see in pictures of the front portion of the garage roof, where the membrane has loosened off a little bit. I plan on rectifying that, and I will even go to the extent of trimming all the way around to make it look a little bit better. But as far as any water penetration goes, there's no water getting in there. I wouldn't put up with that. Come on. I mean, this is general maintenance. It's got to be done sooner or later. I don't know. Did I answer your questions? Time frame. Okay, that's where we were. I don't have too much of an issue with anything on here to be done by the 31st of this month, except for the fact of the roof of the garage. I have no intentions on even looking at that this year because I know darn well that everybody's busy right now and I have to kind of analyze it myself, whether I'm going to put steel on it or shingles on it or what I have to do to it. So I have to kind of look into that and see exactly, get up in the attic. And it is showing a little bit of a bow. I can understand that. By the pictures, I can see it looks probably worse than what it really is, but I would think time frame next year, next summer, next June, July. That'll give me time to go through it. Whether I'm going to move the building back a little bit further, I don't know. I had a lot of things in my mind I was going to do up there. And then, of course, as I said, life happens. We don't get up to the cottage all that much anymore. Kids aren't up and around anymore. So I kind of lost focus on it. But this is renewing my focus to what I have to get done. And I do realize that I'm not saying I shouldn't or arguing about the fact of, you know, anything. I agree it's got to get done. And I will do so.
Thank you.
It's just a time frame.
Are there questions or comments from any of the other members? Member Bridgman?
Thank you, Chair Stokes. Mr. Kennedy, I just have a question, an informational question, because I understand that the tarping and it may well be a sealant for the roof. If that gets all trimmed off, what does that do in terms of an order? I know there has to be something put on eventually, but I'm trying to, I mean, there's been some cleanup on this property at one point. So I'm just trying to see if maybe I can find a way to give a little time element here for Mr. Bertram.
Through the chair, under the property standards bylaw, section 2.4, it says that all repairs and maintenance of the property shall be carried out with suitable and sufficient material and in a manner accepted as good workmanship with the trades concerned. All new construction repairs shall conform with the Ontario Building Code where applicable. Me being around property standards for better part of 10, 15 years, I've never necessarily seen a roof structure just be tarped for a permanent basis. It may be tarped for temporary basis, but usually at that point, you'll see that membrane then gets covered in steel or shingles. So while it may be fine to put new tarping on it and have that membrane secured to the point of a property standards order, it wouldn't comply until there's an actual, like if there's an actual roof put on the building by way of either shingles or aluminum or metal or what have you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Please.
And actually my brother used that membrane from a hurricane down in Florida. And after about 6 months, it did start to leak. I do know that. I'm wondering if we gave, not to the end of this month, but if we gave to the end of October for all of this to be done, if that's realistic at all, except maybe this is more to Mr. Bertrand, except for the, I think you're telling me the roof can't be done that quickly?
No, I would like to add to Rob, is it? Rob was saying about the fact that he's been around whatever his job is for, construction. Anyway, I've been around construction for a lot of years, and just to enlighten you that that is a flat roof membrane, okay, which is made for exterior. So it doesn't leak in 6 months. It's not a poly tarp where you go to the store and you buy a Canadian Tire poly tarp and it's great for the first 2 months you put it on, wind catches it, tears apart, everything leaks. That is not that kind of a product. All I was trying to get at was the fact of, I do realize the fact it's got to be taken care of, but I can't be looking at doing it this year is what I was getting at was finance wise, looking at workmanship wise, like getting a trade in there to do any work in there. Everybody's busy. I know it has to be addressed. I do realize that, but I just thought in the meantime, to make it look a little bit better for the onlookers that like to rubberneck on the way by my place, is to trim it up a little bit. I brought some strapping up there, painted white and everything I was gonna put back here and there and whatnot, just to kind of, putting like lipstick on a pig, but it'll work for temporary. It is a temporary roof that I have on there, so only temporary, but it's more of a permanent fix as far as the membrane goes. It's not just a 6-month tarp that you had down south. Yeah, well, there's all kinds out there. Anyways,
Mr. Kennedy, do you have anything to add to, or respond to the suggestions or comments of the appellant?
Through the chair, I guess, just in a point of process, just keep in mind that the committee, while you can confirm, modify, or rescind, you won't be able to add anything to the existing order. So if you want to put a new deadline in on a temporary basis, you would not be able to do that. So if you're looking at extending the time frame for the roof, I would simply just extend it to what the permanent basis would be, however you guys choose to do that.
Does committee want to discuss this in private at all, or is?
Carol, do I put up the recess notice? No, I don't have to. Ready to go?
So the committee would like to make the following motion. Just prior to that, I think it's fair to say that the committee believes that your comments were in good faith here today, that you are committed to making the changes that you said you were committed to making, and that's greatly appreciated by the committee. So the committee wants to make the following motion, moved by member Quinn, second by member Bridgman. Be it resolved that order PS 2023-05 dated May 16, 2023 be modified as follows. That the deadline for items 1, 2, and 3 pertaining to the main dwelling and items 1 and 3 pertaining to the garage be extended for compliance to November 30th, 2023. And 2, that the deadline for items pertaining to item 2, the garage, be extended for compliance to July 1st, 2024. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And just wanted to mention your comment about the service fees and the orders. The committee's not at liberty to make any decisions or make any changes with regard to that, but perhaps Mr. Kennedy can advise you either here or at some later date as to what the process might be to discuss that if there is one.
Through the chair, I think maybe for more of a public education standpoint on our process in regards to this. So council, I believe it was last year was when we did it. There was an amendment made to the fees and charges bylaw that added order fees for bylaw orders, regardless if it's property standard, site alteration, tree conservation, et cetera, which carries a fee of $250. So anytime we issue an order, that fee is also tacked on to that order. Much like what you see when building department issues orders, I believe their fee is the same at $250 when they issue a building code order. As far as the multiple complaints fee goes, that was another addition that council put in, I believe last year, even 2 years ago, where if a property is subject to a file being opened and then a subsequent file being opened within a span of 2 years from the first, it's an automatic $500 fee under the multiple complaints section under the fees and charges bylaw. So that's why those were issued to this property. There was a 2021 file that I kind of alluded to in the presentation with the cleanup of the exterior yard, and then we have this one here which triggered the multiple complaint fee. So if Mr. Bertram is looking to have these waived, you would have to make an application to council and essentially state your case on why you believe they should be waived. So that's the process. I can run through that with you off table and get you through that process if you wish to do that.
That's great. Thank you very much. That's very helpful for us and I'm sure for the appellant.
So just through the chair, just so if there's one bylaw complaint and you go out at that, there's no fee the first time out. It's when there's a second infraction potentially within 2 years.
Yeah, through the chair. So on the first initial file that we have on a property, there's no fees attached to it. I will be quite clear that we are looking at possibly adding some sort of fee if we have to go do re-inspections for that file. Case in point, the two appeals that we had earlier, if I've been there, I would say maybe 10 to 12 times. And there are no fees attached to those inspections, regardless if there's compliance met or not. So we are looking to add that into the fees and charges bylaw, but when you get to a point where another complaint is made and a file is created within a span of 2 years from that first one, that's where the $500 fee gets added onto, because it is expected that people are to comply with our bylaws on a continuous basis.
Okay, so thanks everyone for your participation in today's meeting. In accordance with the Building Code Act, the municipality in which the property is situated or any owner or occupant or person affected by the decision of the Property Standards Committee may appeal to the Superior Court of Justice by notifying the clerk of the municipality in writing and by applying to the court within 14 days after a copy of the decision is sent. We need to pass a motion here approving the previous minutes. The motion is moved by member Bridgman, second by member Brown. Be it resolved that the minutes from the June 12, 2023 Property Standards Appeal Committee meeting be adopted. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? So that's carried. And moved by member Brown, second by member Quinn. Be it resolved that the Property Standards Appeal Committee adjourn at 3:21 PM. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried.